What does it mean to attend an event when some people are cheering in an arena and others are tuning in from thousands of miles away, but everyone still feels like they're part of the same moment? This episode is about the rise of hybrid and digital-first events and how they're creating real connection across distance. Whether in person or online, these gatherings offer more than just entertainment. They're places where communities form, traditions build, and people keep showing up. I'm Daniel Roth, and this is Event Explorer, the podcast that dives into the world's most creative events and talks to the people who bring them to life. From street festivals to eSports tournaments, we explore how culture, technology, and connection collide. Today, I'm joined by Sarah Kneller, Emmy-winning co-founder of August Interactive and the creative lead behind Gamers and Guardians. From producing the International, the world's largest eSports event, to designing a new digital space for military communities, Sarah is helping reshape how and why we gather. If you like what you hear, follow us on your favorite podcast platform, leave a review, or visit eventexp.org and connect. All right, let's get into the conversation with Sarah and learn about Gamers and Guardians. All right, welcome back. Now, you don't end up leading global esports events, integrating AR into live broadcasts, and creating a new kind of gaming community by following the rulebook. You do it by rewriting it. Sarah Kneller has done just that. She's the Emmy-winning co-founder of August Interactive, a former Valve insider, and the creative force behind Gamers and Guardians, a program connecting military communities through competitive gaming. From the global, international, to military LAN tournaments, Sarah has spent her career merging tech, live events, and purpose. Today, we are talking about how esports grew up, what it means to design for impact, and how events can play a pivotal role in the multi-billion-dollar video game market. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm just excited to dig into esports as looking at the event side of these things. I know it's broadcast, it's online gaming, but there's also a big kind of interactive, live, culminating moment, and you've been building these for years now. When you first started in the video game industry, I know you come from like a sporting background, a sporting broadcast background. Where did you, tell me a little bit about that, and then where did this transition to esports come in? Where did you recognize such a fertile ground?
Yeah. So what's really funny, about my story is that I wasn't actually looking for it. It found me. And you're right, I started in sports broadcasting. I was with Fox, ESPN, NBC, did all the major sports leagues. And I was really happy. I loved what I was doing. I was doing amazing work. I was getting to, travel, do great games. And in 2014, a company called Valve Corporation reached out. And they were looking for, they had done a deal with ESPN, and they were going to need to put what was a very unconventional esports tournament, the International. At the time, nobody really knew about what it was. It was the first esports tournament to really exist. And so they were like, oh no, we have to do this, and we don't know how to do it. We don't know what a rundown is. We don't know how to make this fit into, traditional linear media formats. And so I was recruited in to just help with that. Right. So I joined on as an associate director. And while I was ADing the show, I got there on day one and quickly realized, they don't actually have any plans. There was no rundown. There was no show formats. There was no anything. And so we had a ton of fun on that first show. But really, it was trial by fire. And so we were just learning under the gun the entire time. I didn't know anything about games and they didn't know anything about broadcasting. So between the two of us, we had blind spots all over the place. And so it was after that, they reached out and they were like, hey, would you come back and do this again with us? We actually think we could really use the skills that you have here. So after that first ride, I was not quite so keen on going back. I was like, yeah, I think I'm probably going to stick with sports. This was a little bit of a chaos agent for me, and I don't think that I want to come back again. And fortunately, they talked me into it. And so then the next 10 years, we went on a pretty incredible journey together. But yeah, it was a complete accident. I didn't mean to do it, but boy, am I glad that I did.
Very cool. So yeah, it was it's no fault of theirs. It was such a brand new moment, and they knew they had an audience, right? I mean, when they just see this data online, X million players playing a live game. Well, there must have been a sense of how do we access that, and ESPN obviously recognized it as well. Um, yeah, tell me a little bit about so you come from a sports broadcast background. Sports, in my terminology, since I'm a very event focused person, does revolve around an event. We have to get people together. We have a live audience. If the cameras weren't rolling, we'd still have 40,000 people we need to entertain, and so we're ancillary to or building upon a live event, a live moment. So there's that piece that goes into it. Then you have the expertise as well of your broadcast side of things that builds upon, how do we show this, or how do we make a show of it that kind of transfers through a digital audience, a digital medium. And then we have the gaming side too. So you have to, just like a baseball needs to have referees and umpires and follow the rules and keep stats. There's that side of it too. Tell me, I know that's a huge premise, but how do those kind of things come together, and where did your expertise in sports broadcasting and sports kind of event management or live broadcast management pay off there?
Yeah. So I think the nexus of all of those things is really the importance part, right? And so for me, I've always looked at events in a slightly different way, and I didn't realize that I looked at them in a different way until retrospectively you're like, oh, I was doing it differently, but I didn't see it at the time. I was just doing the thing that I thought was fun, right? Mm-hmm. So I generally produce from a place of what's fun, find the fun. And if it's not fun for everyone on every one of those, next, like one of those access points that you just described, then it's not a good idea. And so one of the things that I try to remember, and I remind, everybody that I work with all the time, don't be precious about our ideas, be precious about our product. And so what actually matters is how we make people feel at the end of the day. And we need to make people feel like they've invested their time and energy into something that was worthwhile, right? And we want them to do that in the live audience. We want them to do that online if they're, watching, virtually or remotely. And we want them to do that in the game. And so finding a way to make sure that each one of those things is providing value, like real value to our viewers, to our players, to our audience, is the thing that's really like the most important thing, just for from a foundational standpoint, right? But then looking at it, there's a lot of different ways that you can create cross-platform integrations. And this is where I think esports is really different from any of the opportunities that I had at the time with conventional sports. And obviously, traditional sports have come a long way with how they've increased their digital presence, right? So we've seen that evolve over, the last few years here specifically. But at the time, esports was the only place that we could really do this. And so there was, we had this immediate, so one of the first things that I hit on that was like, oh, this is something, was we would be able to cause, so we could have a trigger in the arena, and the arena, so like, there would be a certain, an event would happen in the game. It would trigger, lighting that happened all the way up with the Pixmob bracelets in the arena, would turn the entire arena into this like visual spectacle. And so then the players that were playing in the game were controlling this, 20, 30, 40,000 person environment around them. And then once we added fan integrations, they could also control that environment. And so it was this way where everybody, it didn't matter where you were joining from, you could participate in the experience in a meaningful way, right? So like you had cause and effect. Whereas like when we watch a football game as a spectator at home, I'm just spectating. Like it's passive consumption, right? Like I can't actually affect the outcome of what's happening there at all. But esports really unlocks a whole bunch of different potential in that way, which makes it a lot of fun.
Amazing. So yeah, there is the opportunity for such exciting content. And part of that, that's interesting there is we're bringing a light to people, the players, right? These are kind of the stars, right? There's the digital avatar of them and their presence in the game, and then the people themselves who in the past, were maybe not the center of attention. They were kind of playing through this avatar. So what was how did you kind of build this environment and this league feel where you could make stars out of people that traditionally kind of were behind, a monitor, behind a closed door?
Yeah. So the the gaming world, so yes, like they largely are they're not media trained athletes, right? Like the guys and some girls in esports they're not media trained. And so they haven't had this traditional kind of like, how you speak to press and how you walk on a stage and how you command a room and all of these types of things that we take for granted in traditional athletes. And so a big part of it was the first, 5 years was just training the scene. And so it was things like, hey, we're going to have a media days press camp, and we're going to help people with these things, and we're going to help them, build their brand, and we're going to bring awareness. So there's a lot of education on the front end. And so in addition to that, it was also cultivating the trust to say, because in a lot of instances, these players are very young. And so there's a lot of trust. The internet can be a harsh place. And so there's also that, that fear of, if I put myself out there, what's the backlash going to be? What are people going to say about me? Am I going to get flamed? So in every way, we approached it like we wanted them to, to feel really comfortable, to know that we were going to take care of them, to know that we had their back, like we were only going to make them look good. And so once we got that trust, then they were willing to let their personalities fly, right? And so once we got the personalities, once we could get people comfortable and then they could be themselves, then audiences started to identify with, like, oh, player X, player Y, right? So they started to identify with different players based on where they were and what player, like what kind of heroes they played in game or what they were excited about. And so the humanization, humanizing them. And so it was because it takes what is, a pretty normal kid in a lot of aspects, and it turns them into someone who's on a pedestal. And what that did was it created a community that was absolutely incredible, because everybody who was watching at home could say like, oh, that could easily be me. Which is so different from what we get when we watch sports, right? Like, I never watch the NFL and think, oh, that could easily be me. Like, no, it couldn't, right? Like, definitely not. So that was really the kind of the tipping point for us in recognizing the profound power of esports to connect on a level that traditional sports just can't quite reach, right? Like, traditional sports, very aspirational, very incredible. Esports, highly accessible. So like the low barrier to entry really drove everything, because you could easily see a track, right? Or it could be anyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest esports events that you were brought into and you mentioned is the International. This is is it called Dota, DOTA?
Yeah.
This is multi country. I mean, it's, throughout the world, there's millions of viewers of this, and the prize pools can be, I saw, at the highest point was like $40 million that was going out to players, maybe sitting in their living room and then making it their way to the arena, larger than, many other golf events or tennis events or, these kind of larger events that we are in awe of the money that's being given away here. So what's that? Just give a sense of kind of that scale, like audience size. What does it take to work at an esports level of that kind of size?
Yeah. So interesting thing about the prize pool for Dota is that it's actually kind of crowdsourced in a way through a battle pass. So it's a compendium pack. So the community actually sponsors and funds what becomes the prize pool. And so there's a tremendous amount of pride in growing, traditionally in growing that prize pool. The model's changed a little bit over the last couple of years. So it's, it's coming down. But that was when we hit the $40 million one, that was really the profound thing about it, was the amount of pride that the community had in watching that grow. And so they, and again, they had agency. They were controlling the outcome. And so, which gamers love, right? And so, that was pretty incredible. It also causes a lot of international attention when you're doing things that way, right? Because people can see from all over the world how they're participating in it. When you look at event organization on a global scale for esports, yes, it's a monster. So yeah, prize pools are huge. The complexity of systems architecture is also huge. Um, we had at one point we had broadcasts happening on in 5 different countries. So Singapore, Kazakhstan, Bucharest, Norway, and Shanghai, China. So we had, and so everything has to be low latency. You can't have delay, gameplay. You have to keep the gameplay going at a certain pace so that it doesn't look laggy on screen. And so the number of people that are required, but also just like the system is really important. And so we spent a significant amount of time on value engineering and architecting our systems designs. And so that's probably the single most important thing, is the backbone that everything rides on. And making sure that it's laid out well. You understand what the paths are going to be. All too often, we didn't, have a direct line between point A and point B on the globe. So you have to go the long way around, and you have to figure out how to get it in less than a half of a second delay. And so there's, just a lot of technical components that go into it, right? And then we had the bright idea to add the additional complexity of, oh yeah, well, we're going to do this with virtual studios, and they're all going to come from one hub. And so we want to be able to control 28 languages simultaneously. We want to be able to do it from one world feed location spot. And then we want to feed all of these satellites. And then we want all of them to have XR studios. And so it was,
Massive.
massive, absolutely massive, but so much fun. The end product was beautiful. It contributed a lot to the industry as far as like, technical testing. We tested a lot that year. We prototyped a lot that year. We did a lot of, and we released some really good beta, some beta products with our partners. So it was fantastic. It was fun. But yeah, it's there's a lot of different things that go into it, and then that doesn't even touch the whole side of tournament organizing, visas, getting people moved around the world in the way that they need to, right? So there's the event organizer side of it, there's the broadcast logistics of it, and then there's all of the policy pieces that have to go into it too.
And this is all for a hugely international fan base. I mean, tell me a little bit. I mean, that's what's driving it, right? That's these people that are contributing to this crowdsourced funding pool. Even live, I imagine, people are dressing up, in their favorite team's colors, and they've got their hero teams, and you've got meet and greets and signing and things like that. How does that kind of embody itself live, and like what's the spirit of that in a room with that kind of size of tournament?
Oh my God, it's electric. It's absolutely electric. So it is, so yes, like there's cosplay, there's people that are, like everyone's got their team stuff on, but then also, there's not as much of like a team division as you would get in traditional sports. People are there because they love the game. And so while there is like some national pride that comes with, teams from different regions, because the international is, based on geographic region. And so, but ultimately everybody's there because they want to see good gameplay. And so like, whereas like with football, people don't show up and they're like, go football. Like it's
Sure.
actually just people come to an international and they're like, I'm just here for the Dota. And so, it is it's like festival. So kind of, we had a lot of like emphasis on the festival side of it as well. And so there's like, outdoor watch party, like giant screens on lawns and beer gardens and food pavilions and, food trucks and LAN tournaments for attendees that can just come in and like pop in and play Dota. Performing artists. We had a workshop, like we had what's called the creators workshop area. And so it was a bunch of artists that were community members, and then they would do kind of like a swap meet type thing. Right. So there's, in addition to what's happening in the arena, there's a full festival happening outside around it.
Incredible. And I imagine also that the digital audience is engaged, that way too. So you're making assets and you're kind of pushing out your broadcast elements, but how is that different than traditional sports, like content creation and fan engagement on a digital aspect?
Yeah. So our the expectation of the gaming community is that digital content is interactive. And so that's I think the main differentiator is everything that we do, we always had to be thinking, how can my audience affect, impact, or interact with this? And how does this get them to go back to the game? Right. So like how are we increasing, that because you have to reinforce that connection point. And so the game is like it's the glue that holds it all together. And so if you can get people to keep going back to the game, you can keep them feeling like they're getting a reward because then you can actually reward them in game. And so it gave us different avenues where we could let people play with things in like in chat. So whether it was like chat activations or Twitch drops or rewards of some kind, right? So there was like, we could immediately reward people with, you did this, you took this action watching on the stream, and therefore you were awarded this in game, and you have it immediately. It's immediately available, right?
So
as soon
smart,
as you
yeah.
log into the game. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Okay, so you've shifted a little bit in recent years, or you've started a new business with some colleagues, and this is is military focused and military gamer focused. Can you tell me, so where did this bubble up? Because obviously it's doing so much good, and I really want to dig into, focusing on this network and focusing on the impact that gaming can have in people's lives, and the connection that it can bring with people, soldiers that may be stationed abroad, or people that have still need a community when they're out of the military, with veterans. How did this start with August and your partners there?
So in 2016, we had done a documentary series that we were going to be bringing together this group of guys who had been playing Dota together. They've been playing for 10 years at the time, like they'd been playing together online for a very long time. And we brought them together, and we were watching, had the camera crew there, audio crew, everything. I was very producer mode at the time, and I was like, yep, we're gonna get this shot and this shot, and then we're gonna, I knew how we were gonna edit it all together, and I was just thinking about the content piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in that moment when we brought all of them together and they saw each other for the first time, I forgot about like everything that was happening, and the sheer joy, and like I watched 5 grown men burst into tears, and like they ran to each other, they hugged each other. It was like, I still get emotional talking about it, right? Like it was watching them for like the next 10 minutes, like interact with each other, was the most amazing thing. And I was like, oh my God, this is so much bigger than a game. Like this is so much bigger than prize pools and spectacle and audiences and like everything that we're doing here. And they were people that when they told us afterwards, they were like, yeah, like these guys helped me get through the hardest times of my life. These guys were the ones that like I would spend hours on games with, and we would like talk about life. We would talk about what was hard. We would talk about, like everything that was going on. And so they had found like a family, like a community, a connection. And they showed up for each other because it gave them purpose. And so that was the first time that I realized, like, holy cow, this is like, these communities are not just like typical fandom. Like these are like deeply emotional communities. And so I started thinking about all of the ways over the next, so fast forward almost 10 years now, I've been thinking about all of the different ways that games help connect people. And so I had the opportunity to do a lot of different events, help, test a lot of different things out and see how we could create community connection and purpose through play. And so with that, a group of us inside Valve long had a theory that we could use games for generating pro-social outcomes, right? So we could create games, we could create communities that weren't focused on exploding loot boxes or predatory monetization or dark patterns that drive addiction, but that there was enough good at the core of gaming that if you stripped all of those things away, it would still stand on its own. And so for us, looking at, what's next and what we're doing now, it was really an opportunity for us to say, no, we know what the outcome can be here, and we know how profound the outcome can be here. Um, so let's go do it. And so it's been absolutely incredible. I had two of my very, very close friends die by suicide. And so for me, one of them a veteran, one of them not a veteran. And uh, by all counts, people that I thought were very happy. And nobody, and it was one of those situations, or both of those situations, where everybody kind of looks around and says, "Did you know? Like, did you know that they weren't okay?" And uh, unfortunately, all too often, that's way too common of a story. There's that happens way too many times. So I come from a Navy town, a military family, Navy family, and so for me, just having the opportunity to use everything that we have learned to be able to provide a time, place, and space for a community that is wildly underserved. There's a lot of different things out there that are like, oh yeah, here's a therapist, and here's a medication, and here's a doctor. But let's be real, like, that's not what we want, right? Like, we don't want to go talk to a therapist all the time. Like, like it's great. It's good. Also, it's a barrier, right? Like, it's not immediately accessible. It's hard. And so, what we look at is like on a scale of, like 1 to 10, right? So there's a lot of focus on the 7 to 10. And how do you triage the people that are in this really critical zone of, they're in a very critical space in their life. What we look at is like the 0 to 5. And how do you keep people in a place where they have connections, they have community, they have purpose? So maybe they don't escalate to that 7 zone because they've had this micro intervention on the front end, right? They feel like they have a connection and a community. So I think that was a very long-winded answer for you.
Right? The benefit is, obvious, but not something that that was prevalent probably, or that was the, and still needs more attention. And it's just amazing to hear you talk about being able to provide purpose, and I grew up in the 80s. It was like, turn that video game off. It's rotting your brain. It's almost seen as a waste of time. Yet, whatever. There's so many other things people do that are so similarly or even less connected or less constructive. So giving space to this as joy in our lives is important, and this type of thing can provide joy. What portion of your day did you have joy or not? Let's add to the part that we did have that joy, and then be, connecting people in an increasingly disconnected world, right? And increasingly, the digitization of this world has given us so much convenience, but has made us so much farther apart. And, obviously, I'm a huge proponent of events and festivals for this reason. And that's why I was so interested in this story. And I'd love to hear you talk about the idea of an event or a coming together, digitally, and kind of how you plan on kind of making more of those spaces, and what does that, how do you build that a little bit?
So we have two major projects that we are working on right now. And so the first one, we're currently in season 1 of Gamers and Guardians. And so Gamers and Guardians is a weekly series where for 4 hours every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific on Twitch, we have people playing. So we run different games every week, and people can join live. They can join our Discord. They can pop into a game right then. So every week, reliably, time, place, space that you can come, you can play, you can have fun, and you know that it's going to be a good time. That's really important for community building. Mm-hmm. And one of the so with that, it lets us have something that people can count on. They can look forward to every week, right? And so we've had great feedback from the community that's been participating in it. So far, we just finished episode 6 last night. And so people are absolutely loving it. They're having a ton of fun. And so what it's going to end in is, so it's online, right, for 23 weeks. So it's a 23-week season 1. So every week we play, and then it culminates in a LAN tournament for the finalists. And so we are actually going to fly all of the, the winners in that qualify for the LAN tournament at the end of the thing. And then we have an in-person event for them. And so, it really is combining the best of both worlds, because we have, the low barrier to entry. Anyone can join anytime. Doesn't matter what your skills are. There's people that are, they can teach you. You can learn. If you're really good, you can come and you can just, be the teacher or beat up on people, whatever you feel like that day. And so there's that part of it, which we absolutely love. The other thing that we're doing is, and that's, regular community building. Then we also have the Military Esports League that we're launching, and that event's going to be in San Antonio in February 2026. So at the Boeing Techport Arena where we're going to be. And so with that, it's really the pinnacle of the professional tier of military esports. And so again, we're doing, much like we did before with Dota, we're merging together the everyday experience for the community at large, but then also putting on display, what it looks like at its apex. And so it gives you something that's inspirational, it's aspirational, it's a ton of fun, but it's also super accessible because everybody has a path that could get them directly to that Military Esports League event in San Antonio.
So what's that? This is arena size. This is the first one, and you're going big. What's that kind of shaping up to be? From an event perspective, or from that kind of from the attendees, what do you want that experience to be like?
Again, we want it to be the full festival experience. We want it to be, immersive. And I hate that word. But we want it to be, we want them to feel something when they are there, right? We want them to feel proud of, of whatever their affiliation is or what team they're cheering for or what game they're there to support. So we have a variety of games that are going to be played at the tournament. So it's not just for one IP. That's another tremendous advantage that we have now is we can use a variety of IPs. And so we can get lots of different communities. So that's awesome. But yeah, so we have, watch parties. We've got a Champions Lounge. We have a drop-in Apex tournament, in the LAN Lounge that we can have up to 90 people playing. So attendees can just pop in, and then we're going to run an Apex tournament for all of them. We have the main stage, which has, all of your pro tier, competitive play happening on it. We've got some very fun, I can't quite say it yet, we have some very fun celebrity matches that are going to be happening as well, which is awesome. So that will be very cool. Drone racing outside. We've got
cool.
All kinds of stuff. Yeah. So it's shaping up to be a very fun event. We're still early in the planning for it. But already that list of things that I rattled off, if we stopped there, it would still be great.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Just while I've got you, and your expertise is tested, and it is, you're putting it towards so much good. Let's just talk about positivity in the gaming world and what your hopes are kind of for the future, and how can people kind of access that, from just, a personal perspective, but then, if people are building events and they can think about, esports perspectives and digitization and interactivity, how do you see that growing? How do you see this field kind of, I think it still is, right? There's new game. The industry is always pushing new games, and fans are always hungry for what's the next game. I think games get these loyal fan bases, but then all of a sudden we're splintering off, and now there's a new community with new characters, new mascots, new ways to play, new systems to play on. How do you? We're kind of at this burgeoning point, right? It does feel like this industry is just getting started, even though there's millions of fans. Kind of, what are your thoughts for the future and for those who want to build it?
You're right. I think it is. I agree. I think we are just getting started. We have grown a lot over the last 10 years, and boy, do we have a long way to go. We have a very long way to go still. industry's still very green in a whole bunch of ways. And so from a game maker's perspective, so we're also making a game. That's the third part of the circle,
Nice.
right? So the game is the glue that holds it together, and we have the community and the professional scene. So we are making a competitive esport game. But one of the things I think for me, the thing that I get most excited about is thinking about the industry moving away from kind of the cheap tricks that have been used for a long time in game making, right? And so if we can get away from those things as an industry, I think that the player bases will be better off for it. The game makers will be better off for it. There's going to be a little bit of, I probably made a whole bunch of game makers cringe with that sentence. But we have a responsibility, and we have, like a moral obligation to not abuse our players. And I think that too many developers out there abuse their players. And I think that too many developers out there use intentionally predatory, game making mechanics. And so my hope is that with the onset of and quick adoption of AI tools, and with decreasing the barrier to entry to games making, that it actually creates more accountability, because there's going to be just an overflow of products available on the market, right? Like, it's going to be so saturated is what I'm anticipating. And so in order to rise above all of the noise, you're going to have not only a great product, but something that people feel good about engaging in. And as you look like generationally, millennials were tilting more in the direction of, value-based products. So aligning with companies that are, that mirror the values that they hold as consumers. But then when you go younger than that, so Gen Z, even more so, they're, embedded with value-based products. And then alphas, 97% of them are gamers and also care huge about social impact. And so there's, I think, going to be a really big obligation to honor those,
People are investing their time with you. And it's almost funny to hear you say, with more AI, it's going to require more human. It's that people, there's just going to be a wash and a sea, and the things that are going to pop up are things, that have empathy, or the things that have true engagement. And I think that's optimistic, and I'd love to hear it, and that you've seen it. I mean, I'm sure what's cool about esports and digital events is you have metrics galore. A lot of festivals, they just like, I think there were 10,000 people watching that artist. Was it a good investment? We're not sure. But as soon as an eyeball moves away, basically, or as soon as someone clicks away to something else, okay, well, hey, we lost half our audience there. Maybe we should reshape that into something, that kept the audience. And you're doing that, from I do think there's an empathy there. There's a reactiveness to, and that what you're doing with it, somebody could say, oh, well, we're incentivizing you, just come back, please come back. But if somebody's invested in a story, they're also not going to click away. If somebody's invested in a person or a team and know the meaning behind what they're doing, there's so much more to it. Well, thank you. Are you a gamer now too? Are you gaming?
Like, I wouldn't call myself, well, I mean, kind of. I'm not good at anything. I have fun. I play. I'm not good. And also, I'm okay with that.
Gotcha. Well, I think you've got some time here where you can. I think in 3-4 years we're going to see you rising to the top of the ranks, perhaps.
No, I think the carpal tunnel in my right hand makes my click speed a little bit slow, and so I am probably not going to be very competitive.
Dang it! It's.
I know. I unfortunately cannot move as quickly as the 20-year-old counterparts that are out there. So
sure, yeah, it's a young woman's game, but hey, we that means there's more heroes coming our way. There's more great stories that you're going to be bringing to life, more people you're celebrating. I just want to thank you so much. This is a really enlightening conversation for me. The idea that you have, these hundreds, thousands, soon to be growing even more every week, turning up, and they're there, they're live. That is a live event. That's, and it's important to these people, and it becomes a tradition. It becomes something they can rely on, a space for them to feel seen or to feel engaged with. It's just fabulous. So the more I learned about this story and what you're planning to do, I'm really impressed, and I wish you guys all the luck. I'm going to be definitely following and watching now. Where can people tune in to the weekly broadcast?
Yeah, so Twitch, Gamers and Guardians. So you can go to the Gamers and Guardians channel on Twitch and find us there. You can also go to augustinteractive.gg, and you can get links out to follow along with, release dates for the Military Esports League, for Gamers and Guardians. We'll also be posting updates on our game development as it comes along. And then also, you can follow us on Twitter, or X, I guess, whatever we want to say. And then, so lots of fun stuff coming up. Lots of great things coming very soon and or underway right now.
I know there's some things you can't say that I know you're dying to because they're so cool. So people tune in for sure. Make sure to follow Sarah. Thanks for walking us through your work, thinking behind it. Global esports stages, you're creating platforms, and these platforms are serving military veterans, military players in such a unique way. And it's a thing, we hear all the stats. We're like, what can we do about it? You are doing something about it, and doing it in such a fun way, bringing joy, bringing optimism, bringing connection and community. And, as much as a live event does it, so can we do with digital events. And I love that you're like crossing that bridge, that the culmination of a massive video game and millions of people around the world can be getting people together in a room is something that like nails right at the core of culture and community building and making life, meaningful. So, thank you, your perspective, your leadership. It just really helps illuminate this world that, I think people that they don't play, they don't realize is there, or they don't realize they could get into it. So from the lowest level to the highest. Let's get more people playing and more people connecting through this. So thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. That was Sarah Kneller sharing what it takes to build events that reach beyond a single room or screen. Her work reminds us that connection doesn't depend on geography. With the right design, a digital event can feel just as real, just as meaningful as anything in person. So whether you're producing for a packed arena or a live stream chat, the goal is the same: to create something people want to be part of and keep coming back to. Now, this is Event Explorer, and I'm Daniel Roth. If you enjoyed this episode, follow the show, leave a review, and visit eventexp.org to get in touch and share your own story. You can follow Sarah's work, following Gamers and Guardians on Twitch, or visit augustinteractive.gg to learn more. Until next time, thanks for listening and happy exploring.